The Galactic Empire stretched across countless star systems, its dominion a monument to power and domination. Its leaders, a council of towering alien beings, viewed strength as the ultimate virtue. In their eyes, every species in the galaxy was evaluated solely by its capacity for war. The weak were subjugated, the strong earned a place within their ranks. Humanity, by their standards, was an anomaly. Earth's entry onto the galactic stage had been unremarkable. No grand fleets, no displays of might. Instead, humans brought ambassadors, engineers, and merchants, choosing negotiation over intimidation. To the Empire, this was not diplomacy. It was submission. A broadcast was sent across the galaxy from the heart of the Empire, a declaration meant to solidify their narrative. Humans, boomed the voice of an alien official, are cowards. They hide behind words because they lack the strength to wield weapons. Their worlds are soft, their people weaker still. The statement elicited laughter among other species. To them, humanity's silence seemed to confirm the insult. Yet, not all who watched were amused. On Earth, leaders in hidden chambers observed the transmission in grim silence. They knew humanity's image in the galaxy was fragile, its survival hinging on alliances and perception. This insult threatened everything. Still, no public response was given. The Empire's arrogance grew. The reality of Earth's choice to avoid conflict was misunderstood. It wasn't fear that drove their restraint, it was calculation. Humanity had seen the horrors of war, endured devastation from their own hands. They knew better than to unleash such destruction unnecessarily. But restraint was not weakness. It was a choice, one born of wisdom rather than cowardice. Among humanity, there were those who embodied this principle in ways the galaxy could never comprehend. The kind of people who operated in the shadows, whose actions shaped outcomes without the need for armies. And when diplomacy failed, Earth had its own answers. An old general, seated at a dimly lit console, leaned forward. His voice was a low rumble, measured yet decisive. If they want to see what humanity is capable of, we'll show them. Send the signal. Beside him, a younger officer hesitated before pressing the button. This wasn't a broadcast. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was a quiet message sent to a single individual. The Galactic Empire had mocked humanity, certain of their superiority. What they didn't realize was that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its numbers, nor its fleets, but in its ability to adapt, to endure, and to rise when underestimated. And now, they had just awakened a force that the galaxy would come to fear, a force honed not by arrogance, but by necessity. Somewhere, on an unassuming corner of Earth, the signal was received. A figure glanced at the message, their expression unreadable. The Galactic Empire's perception of humanity was about to change forever. The message reached its recipient swiftly, routed through encrypted channels known only to a select few. The individual who received it was a ghost, a name whispered in fear by those who knew the depths of humanity's contingency plans. His true name had been erased long ago, but among those who mattered, he was known by a title that carried weight, the American Boogeyman. He was a relic of humanity's darker days, a product of programs designed for precision and destruction. Trained to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast any enemy, he was the embodiment of calculated violence. Most assumed men like him had been retired, their purpose rendered obsolete in an era of diplomacy. Most were wrong. The message was simple: the Empire has called us cowards. Show them they're wrong. For a moment, he stared at the message, unmoving. It wasn't the first time humanity had been insulted by larger powers, and he'd learned to ignore the hubris of alien empires. But this was different. It wasn't just humanity's pride on the line, it was their survival. Reputation meant everything in the galaxy. Being seen as weak invited exploitation, even annihilation. The Boogeyman opened a secure case, revealing tools that had been dormant for years. A lightweight suit built for stealth, a compact arsenal of human-engineered weaponry, and devices designed to disorient and terrify. These weren't weapons meant to destroy armies, they were tools to dismantle the very idea of resistance. Humanity's strength wasn't in brute force, it was in the psychological edge, the ability to make enemies doubt themselves before the first shot was fired. As he prepared, Memories of his past missions surfaced. Operations where fear was more effective than firepower. He didn't kill indiscriminately, he didn't have to. A single act, perfectly timed, could unravel entire chains of command. His job wasn't to fight battles, it was to end them before they began. A final briefing came through, detailing the mission. The target was a critical Empire outpost, a hub of logistics and military planning. It was heavily fortified, a symbol of their dominance. The objective wasn't destruction, it was disruption. He was to remind the Empire that even their strongest fortresses could be breached, their greatest warriors made to cower. As he reviewed the details, a quiet resolve settled over him. This wasn't about vengeance or proving a point. It was about ensuring the survival of his people. Diplomacy could only go so far when dealing with those who respected nothing but power. Before leaving, he sent a single message back to his handlers. They want to see what humanity is capable of. I'll show them. He moved without hesitation, his presence disappearing as quickly as it had emerged. For the Galactic Empire, it was just another day of mocking those they deemed inferior. They had no idea that their perception of humanity was about to be shattered, not by fleets or armies, but by one man. One shadow. One boogeyman. The outpost was a monolith of alien engineering, a towering structure surrounded by layers of automated defenses and patrolling soldiers. It was designed to be impenetrable, a symbol of the Galactic Empire's power. Tonight, it would become a stage for fear. The boogeyman moved silently through the shadows, his suit masking his presence from thermal scanners and motion detectors. The air was thick with the hum of alien machinery, but he tuned it out, his focus unshakable. Every step was calculated, every movement precise. He bypassed the outer defenses effortlessly, using tools that disrupted the outpost sensors just long enough to create an opening. Inside, the aliens carried on as usual, unaware of the predator in their midst. He began his work by targeting their communications. A silent detonation of an electromagnetic pulse disabled their internal systems, plunging parts of the facility into darkness. Panic rippled through the ranks as soldiers scrambled to restore order. Then came the calling cards. In a corridor near the barracks, a group of alien soldiers found a human symbol etched into the wall, a handprint, smeared in a substance that glowed ominously under their lights. It wasn't blood, but the implication was clear. Fear began to spread. The boogeyman moved deeper, isolating key targets. He didn't kill indiscriminately, that wasn't the point. Instead, he chose his moments carefully. A commanding officer found their quarters empty, save for a human-made knife embedded in their desk. Another leader, reviewing security footage, saw nothing but static and glimpses of a shadow moving too fast to track. Word spread quickly among the soldiers. Something was inside the outpost, something they couldn't see or stop. Their training, their confidence, began to crumble. They whispered among themselves, their voices tinged with fear. The human wasn't fighting them, he was dismantling their will to fight. When the first soldier disappeared, the panic became chaos. His weapon was found abandoned in a corridor, his comms unit emitting a garbled transmission that sounded almost like breathing. Those who dared to search for him found nothing. The boogeyman's tactics were surgical, psychological. He didn't need to reveal himself fully, he let their imaginations do the work. As the hours passed, the outpost structure of authority began to collapse. Soldiers abandoned their posts, their fear outweighing their duty. The once organized garrison devolved into fragmented groups, each more terrified than the last. By the time the boogeyman reached the central command room, the remaining officers were already on the verge of breaking. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The sight of him, clad in his dark suit, his expression unreadable, was enough. He left them alive but shattered, their confidence and arrogance replaced by a primal, unshakable fear. As he exited the facility, he triggered a final device. The outpost systems lit up briefly, broadcasting a single image across the Empire's encrypted channels, a human skull, overlaid with the words, "We are watching." The message was clear. Humanity was no longer to be underestimated. The aftermath of the mission rippled across the galaxy like a shockwave. The once proud outpost, a cornerstone of the Empire's military infrastructure, was now a hollow shell of its former self. Reports from the survivors were chaotic and contradictory, but one detail was consistent: the humans had sent something that wasn't an army, wasn't a fleet, it was worse. High-ranking officials in the Galactic Empire reviewed the footage, what little there was. Fragmented recordings showed glimpses of the Boogeyman, a shadow here, a flash of movement there. His presence was like a phantom, an enemy who struck without warning and left no trace. The officers who had been spared spoke of fear unlike anything they'd ever known. Some resigned from their posts, unwilling to face the possibility of another encounter. The Empire, for all its arrogance, could not ignore the psychological devastation. The outpost's defenses had not been overrun by overwhelming force but rendered useless by a single human. The realization struck deep: if one human could do this, what could an army achieve? Across the galaxy, the broadcast left behind at the outpost was analyzed and dissected. The image of the human skull, paired with the phrase "we are watching," became a symbol that spread far beyond the Empire's borders. Other alien species took note. Humanity, once dismissed as weak, had demonstrated a strength that was subtler and far more terrifying. On Earth, the operation was considered a success. The Boogeyman's actions had sent an undeniable message: humanity was not to be provoked. Yet, there was no celebration. Those involved in the mission understood the gravity of what had been done. This wasn't a victory to boast about, it was a line drawn in the sand. The Boogeyman returned to the shadows as quietly as he had emerged. No recognition, no public acknowledgement. For him, it wasn't about glory or revenge. It was about survival, ensuring that humanity's place in the galaxy was secure. He knew the work was far from over. The galaxy would always have those who underestimated Earth, and there would always be a need for people like him. In the Empire, a formal declaration was issued: humanity was to be treated with respect. The mocking broadcasts ceased, replaced by diplomatic overtures and cautious attempts at reconciliation. But beneath the surface, the Empire harbored a lingering fear, one that would not fade quickly. They had seen a side of humanity they never expected, a side they did not wish to provoke again. As for the rest of the galaxy, humanity's reputation transformed overnight. They were no longer seen as diplomats or traders but as something far more complex. A species capable of unimaginable kindness but also unrelenting fury when pushed too far. The Boogeyman's message had been received. And so, humanity continued to walk its chosen path of peace, but the galaxy now understood the truth: peace was their preference, not their weakness. And for those who forgot, there was always someone waiting in the shadows to remind them.